harvest winter squash when the stem has become dry and brittle and after the skin has become hard enough to resist pressure from your thumbnail. Always harvest squash with a piece of stem attached. Never store fruit if the stem has snapped off, because it will be vulnerable to rot. Well, several weeks ago I divided this bed into little sections, and we planted what is known as a square foot garden. And I seem to recall that I said I would keep a detailed record of what we could harvest out of this little plot. Well, the time has arrived for us to do some record keeping, and I must make some of the initial harvesting. In fact, I could have begun harvesting the lettuce a little while ago, but no matter, I'll do that now. There's also, I've got some pretty good beets in here, and yes, I could even take up some of the green onions for tonight's salad. But before we go into the harvest, I want to tell you something very important about cabbage, the two cabbage that I've got here. At this stage, just before the cabbage head forms, it's very important to feed the cabbage well. And I'll tell you why. You see these outer leaves here, the leaves that you're going to throw away, you won't have anything to do. Well, at this stage, they absorb food, energy, like crazy, you might say. They really store it up, but there's a purpose for that. When the head starts to form, all the energy that they've stored up, they've developed, they then feed into the head and enable it to grow. In other words, they become a sort of secondary root. Well, if you want these secondary roots to behave like good secondary roots, you must feed the cabbage very well at this stage, and that's what I will do. But now let's turn to some of the harvest. I generally harvest green onions for use in salads from wherever they are most crowded in the bed. The beauty of this crop is that they can be pulled at any stage of development, fat or thin. Often the leaves are tender enough to be eaten as well. This beet is bigger than I expected from this crowded planting, but it gives an idea of what you can get from the square foot method. In the square foot garden, lettuce is often picked a leaf at a time, but the whole plant can be cut as I'm doing here. Well, a whole basket full of produce for the first harvest isn't bad at all. And now, when the weekend comes up, as long as I replant every little open space here with something new, this bed will give me a whole lot more harvest like this in the weeks to come. Let's talk for a few moments about garden tools and how best to use them. After all, it doesn't matter how good a tool is, if you don't know how to get the best use out of it, it's not going to do the best job for you. Let's take that most important of all garden tools, the spading fork. I've often seen many people start a spading fork and they start at an angle like this and push in. That means you're digging rather shallowly. To get the most effective amount of digging, place your fork upright or have the tines vertical. Just adjust that by pushing the handle forward just a little. Then it's down, and then simply coming behind it, standing on it and pressing in. If you had to, you could even get up and the weight would force it down. Second point, now we pull it back. Don't use simply the energy in your arms or your arm muscles. Get your whole body into it. Step back a little and just pull down like this, allowing your body to dig it up. Then we can turn it over. This fork, it's a pretty good one. It happens to be English, which isn't surprising because the English, garden nation as they are, have produced and designed some of the finest spading forks and spades in the world. That's what they're well known for, renowned for. The Dutch are another great horticultural nation. Do you know what they are renowned for? The hoe. They have designed and perfected the hoe to a greater degree than any other nation. We all now tend to copy them. And the secret of hoeing, again, if I may indicate the wrong way to hoe. So many people hoe like this. Well, there are a lot of gardening chores where we have to bend over, but if we don't have to bend over, why do that? As the Dutch developed hoeing, it's a case of standing up vertically and hoeing along. Now this length of hoe is actually suited to my daughter, who's a little shorter. Ideally for someone my height, I'm just 6 feet, the handle would be up to here. And then you can stand vertically as you hoe down the row, simply moving down and cultivating like this. Saves a lot of energy, very comfortable, and you can hoe all day long when that happens. Well, so much for the English specialty and the Dutch specialty. What do you think America is most renowned for in garden tools? Well, if you guessed a long-handled shovel, you were absolutely right. Ever wondered why we should have become the shovel specialists in the world? Nobody makes better shovels than we do. Well, it goes back to the days of building the transcontinental railroad. It was built largely with pick and shovel, and principally with the shovel. Now, I know the Europeans built their railroads with shovels as well, but they didn't have so much to do. I mean, transcontinental, 3,000 miles, that was a lot of space to cover. And if it was going to be done in anything like a decent time, then we had to have decent tools. And so something unique happened then. The shovel manufacturers of the day actually hired men to shovel gravel from one side of a shed to the other and then back again all day long for weeks on end while they studied how these men reacted and which was the best shovel and so on and so forth. And they found some interesting things. Incidentally, that's believed to be the first time in the world where research and development, what we tend to know today as simply as R&D, was used. And they found that the best shovel for doing arduous work and moving a lot of soil was the long-handled shovel, and that it shouldn't have a D handle at the top as we have for the little spades and spading forks, nor certainly it shouldn't have the T handle either. It should be a long handle and straight. They also found that the angle of the handle to the blade was important. And what they came with after a lot of experimentation was this. When the blade is flat, the angle up here to the handle should be about 32 degrees. And that's the angle that all good shovels are now made at. But now, how best do we use these shovels? Well, if we're moving, say, a pile of dirt like this, one thing to remember is don't start shoveling from the top down, or even from the middle for that matter. Start at the bottom and let gravity bring everything that's on top down to you. Another way, again, as I've mentioned before, you want to use the body rather than, now this is a mulch, it doesn't give too easily. Rather than just the hand, use the body. So what I do is put my hand behind the end of the shovel, get my body behind it, in this case my leg, and now I can use the whole weight of my body, not my arms so much, and simply go like that. It's relatively easy. And pick it up. Right, now having done this, how do I dispose of it? Well, this is another place where people tend to get very tired very quickly shoveling, because they'll try and lean forward and put the deposit the dirt or the soil or whatever in the wheelbarrow or wherever they're going to do it. That's tiring, so don't do that. As I've got it here now, I lift up the shovel and simply swivel my body and drop it in. Nothing could be easier. Again, use the body. It's far less tiring. Again. Now, if I wasn't simply going to take it away, if I was shoveling, moving it from one side to the other, the answer again is to heave it over my shoulder like that. Whatever you do, you don't throw forward. That's the same when it comes to shoveling snow, by the way. Throw it back over your shoulder. Very much easier to do. Well, that's a few hints. If if you know how to do it correctly, it's going to be so much easier in the garden.